What happens in the booth stays in the booth is more than just a tagline. It is a message that is being echoed by Harris surrogates, including Liz Cheney and Michelle Obama.
You can vote your conscience and not ever have to say a word to anybody. And there will be millions of Republicans who do that on November 5th.
If you are a woman who lives in a household of men that don't listen to you or value your opinion, just remember that your vote is a private matter. Regardless of the political views of your partner, you get to choose. You get to use your judgment and cast your vote for yourself and the women in your life. Remember, women, standing up for what is best for us can make the difference in this election.
And it seems like women might be listening, casting mail-in ballots, voting early, and making Election Day plans to vote for Kamala Harris, knowing full well that the men in their lives are voting for Trump. Some of them are even not so secretly posting about it on TikTok and making canceling out your husband's vote an actual trend on social media. But how many of these stealthy female voters actually exist, and what does it mean for the overall math on Election Day? This conversation in particular, this notion of like women whose husbands are voting for Trump who want to go quietly vote for Harris feels tailored to conservative white women.
100%. Because I think what we have to remember is that white women really only been free for about 70 years. In 1973, the same year that women got the right to an abortion, women still could not open a bank account or get a credit card in their own name without their husband's signature. And the idea of, particularly for white women, of being the protectee was a part of the culture. And so, yeah, if your husband voted for Ronald Reagan, you voted for Ronald Reagan. It was a family vote. You both agreed, and they pretty much would vote the way their husbands voted. You can just see it track in the polls. White women and white men, 60-40 Republican consistently for decades, right? And then something happened in 2022, is that for the first time, white women who have only gained rights through acts of the Supreme Court or through acts of Congress, the 19th Amendment, which didn't give black women the right to vote, it gave them the right to vote. Black women had to take another few decades, several decades to get it. But it gave them rights. They've had rights added to them. Roe v. Wade added to them. The right to contraception added to them in the 1960s. The right to open their own bank accounts. Marital rape was legal until 1991, but that was done. For the first time, white women had their rights taken away. And I just think that the polls and the pundits are undercounting how angry they are and how much of a fight they're ready to get in with these men who are saying, I'm your protector, vote the way I vote and do what I say.
Yeah. It's so interesting to me that it's framed in this, I know you have to keep it a secret from your man, but go and do it anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a nod to the fundamentally conservative, patriarchal dynamics of some of these conservative families, but is also acknowledging that women are going to do what women are going to do. They're going to do what they think is in their best interest. And quite clearly, Trump abortion bans are not in their best interest.
They're not in their best interest. And think about it. It's not just that. The number one beneficiary of affirmative action in this country is white women. White women benefited more than people of color. It's them. And the idea of DEI benefits them. The idea of the C-suite opening up to women. The Mad Men era is seen as the good old days by men. But for women, it was an era when they weren't free. And so I think we're just not able to even poll or prognosticate based on anything that happened before 2022, because what I'm seeing just anecdotally is a lot of conservative women who otherwise would just vote Republican because it's part of their culture. They're just like Democrats or, black folks are Democrats. They're Republicans, but they're mad.
Yeah.
And we don't know that that means this big turnout, early vote, and you're seeing all these women. I find it hard to believe that's a big turnout, eager to vote for the guy who they need protection from based on the 24 odd women who've accused him of sexual harassment or abuse.
Joining us now are Jotaka Eaddy, the founder of Win with Black Women, the first grassroots group to galvanize support for Kamala Harris's presidential run after she announced her campaign 101 days ago today. Woo! Also joining us is Shannon Watts, who then answered the call to bring white women on board for the Harris campaign. It's so great to have both of you guys here.
Yeah.
Jotaka, white women in 2020 voted 55% for Donald Trump, 44% for Joe Biden. Black women, 9% for Donald Trump, 90% for Joe Biden. Similar sort of breakdown in 2016. White women, 52% Trump, 43% Clinton. Black women were 4% Trump, 94% Hillary Clinton. It feels like women generally are very electrified in this moment. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how you're seeing the sort of grassroots enthusiasm from the female base and whether you think there needs to be a sort of different message depending on what subsection of women you're talking to.
Well, I certainly can see, and I think just looking at that audience, just the electricity that we are seeing across the country last night in Washington, D.C. at the Ellipse, now in Madison, earlier in North Carolina, and we are seeing an enthusiasm, particularly among women, but not just the conversations that they're having with each other, but how they're showing up to early vote, seeing large numbers of women, black women, white women, all women, women of all ethnicities showing up. Many of them posting enthusiastically about that vote, you know, this notion of the denial and canceling out of
your husband's
vote. But I think what is happening and the difference is that, you know, in 2016 and many of those women, that 55% that voted for Donald Trump, they lived with the Donald Trump presidency. And I think that in this day and age, we've seen the repercussions of what a Donald Trump U.S. Supreme Court looks like and the removal of so many of our rights. And I think women are fed up, and we are going to exercise our right to stand. And we are also excited about what Vice President Kamala Harris stands for and what she means for the future of women in this country. And quite frankly, we know women can get the job done.
Indeed.
Shannon, you know, I got to ask, there's reporting that in Politico that the Harris campaign is really zeroing in on moderate suburban women and in particular non-college educated white women. Can you talk to me a little bit about sort of anecdotally what your experience has been like in terms of motivating women who may be on the fence, women who may have husbands who are Trump supporters, women who just aren't sure where they want to be on November 6th, 2024? What is resonating? Is it abortion? Is it the post-Dobbs landscape that is really shaping voter opinion right now as you see it?
I think that's part of it, but I think it's a bigger issue, which is a real feeling that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and their supporters hate women. And I don't use that word loosely. I really feel like it's a feeling of hatred. The campaign really brought it home the other day in that rally that Donald Trump had. And then tonight he's insisting that he's going to be the protector of women, whether they want it or not. I think what's really interesting also is what we're seeing are all these whisper campaigns, and you all showed some ads relevant to this, right? Whisper campaigns are how women have shared information for millennia, from things about menstruation to menopause, even men to be afraid of, right? And what we're seeing in this campaign is that same power of persuasion, whether it's telling women that they need to have conversations with their moms and their sisters who may be a part of that 53% who voted the wrong way the last time, whether it's these sticky notes we're seeing left in bathrooms and on airplanes all over the place, particularly in red states, or the ads that you showed, right? There's this group called the Fresh Registry, and they put out a question whether people knew, women knew, that when they voted it was private, and they didn't know. And it started this whole campaign to give women information through a hotline about the fact that their vote is private. So all of this is a persuasion to change the hearts and minds of the 53% of women who we hope will vote the right way this time.
You know, Shannon brings up such a good point about the hatred that some women feel is being directed at them by the Trump campaign. Like, it is, I guess the word is ironic, galling could be another word, that Trump is out there saying, how many women want me to be your protector? At the same time that he is literally attacking a woman repeatedly over and over and over again in the most vulgar language possible, a woman who happens to be the vice president of the United States of America. He has people up there who are comparing her to a prostitute. He uses expletives to describe her vice presidency. I mean, he could not be more insulting. He could not put more of a target on her back. And yet he proclaims and positions himself to be a patriarch to protect women. It doesn't jive.
Their strategy clearly is to overperform with men and also overperform with young men who might be incels or angry or also hate women. And I think to Shannon's point, it is an anti-woman campaign that's also saying to women, you need to be okay with this, because the only way you can be protected is someone like Trump stopping the brown and black people from raping you in the street because they're coming over the border to get you. It's sort of the way that they used to get men lynched kind of campaign.
Yeah, no, Shannon, it does have echoes of like the post-Reconstruction era, right?
Yeah.
When it was like white women need to be protected from the black and brown menace. And that's exactly the positioning rhetorically that Trump has been using at his rallies. You mentioned early voting, and I do think that this is important to highlight to everybody. This is new information we have, that there's currently 56 million early votes have been cast nationally. 53% of them were cast by women. Shannon, when you hear that statistic, should Democrats be rejoicing? Do you think that's an indicator that if women are voting early in those numbers, larger than we expected, those are probably Democratic votes? Or do you think that this is going to be as divided as it has been in 2016 and 2020? Oh,
no. I know it with my heart and soul that those are votes from women who are protesting the hatred that they feel. And look, Brittany Packnett-Cunningham, the activist, always says your whiteness will not save you from what the patriarchy has in store for you, right? And I think women saw in 2016 when Hillary Clinton lost, and then the Trump abortion bans and all of the different things that have happened, that was true, that their whiteness would not save them. And I'm sorry it took so long for us to vote in not just our own self-interest, but in all women's best interests. I believe that is what we're starting to see happen. And when you talk about the gender gap, right, this idea that somehow it's the economy that men care about, I don't think that's true. I think it's preserving the patriarchy, and I think women see that and they want to burn it down.
But tell us what you really think.